All right, everybody, welcome back to the Elias Makos Show. Let's head straight over to Alan DeSousa. He is the borough mayor of Saint-Laurent, and he's the official opposition spokesperson on finance matters. Alan, welcome back to the program.
Good morning, Elias. Thanks for having me on. How are you?
Doing well. And we're 2 weeks after, 14 days later, basically, on that heavy rainfall we saw throughout southern Quebec. Couple of things I just want to get off, touch on right off the top here, Alan, for our listeners. So tomorrow is the last day to file a flood damage claim or with your city and or town. Alan, is there anything you think listeners should know if they're going to come after your borough or another city municipality with the deadline approaching?
Well, I encourage everybody to file their claim, have it well documented. It has to be between 15 days of the event. So whether you're eligible for compensation from the city or from the province, if your claim's not in, it doesn't count. So that's the first question. And I have written to the Prime Minister saying that, look, if you are going to be enlarging accessibility to the provincial program, consider Montreal. Montreal, currently the current program, as you know, is based on rivers overflooding, but Montreal is built on a series of creeks and riverbeds that were put underground over the years. And even though our sewage system overflowed, when water fills up and heavy rains like we had 2 weeks ago, those riverbeds fill up, rise, and flood our streets. So I'm hopeful the Prime Minister will have an open ear to considering this for Montreal.
And Alan, just, because tomorrow's Saturday, if I want, let's say I live somewhere and I want to file a claim, do I have to go to City Hall? How do I file it? It's a Saturday. You guys are closed, I imagine, to City Hall. How do I make sure it's in?
You can do it today, which is a business working day, or you can do it online. So Either way, it is possible to file the claim. Okay, great. That's good to know for all our listeners. Now let's get to the matter at hand here on what you and your colleagues at the official opposition are saying this week, pointing out that there was a project on the table that the Projet Montréal administration canceled or pushed back, what have you, last year. And it really could have made a difference on a day like we saw 2 Fridays ago. Why don't you tell our listeners what the story is here? Well, let's look at it. This is non-political. It's something where stormwater management has been going on for a long time. And in 2005 and 2006, if you may remember, or your listeners may remember, there were some pretty bad storms in the summer. And out of that, I had asked the water department to do a study to determine what might be potential solutions. Out of that study, there was an engineering study by BPR, came out the recommendation that there be 4 large retention basins built on the island of Montreal, 2 in the south, 2 in the north. And out of that, I was able to secure close to $100 million of joint federal and provincial funding, where in November 10th, July 2010, and that's when the government agreed to ante up, the two governments agreed to ante up $100 million. The 4 basins were then to be built over the next decade. 3 of those 4 basins were built, whether they be the Rockfield, Williams on the South Shore, Living on the North Shore, and the only one that wasn't built was the Leduc Basin. Leduc Basin, by coincidence, is in Saint-Laurent. The administration's overspent on the first 3 and then decided to deep 6, the last one. And that basin was the biggest basin, 60-odd thousand cubic meters, that if it had been built 2 weeks ago, it would have definitely had an impact. But Projet Montréal made a decision to flush that one, no pun intended. Mm-hmm. And as a result, the citizens who got flooded last week will probably be wondering why they did that. The need is there. It was identified a long time ago, almost 20 years ago. The money was there, but yet when push came to shove, they chose not to do it.
We're with Alan DeSousa, borough mayor of Saint-Laurent, and we're talking about the rain we got 2 weeks ago and a water retention basin that was not built in time to prevent perhaps some flooding 2 weeks ago. Okay, so Alan, from here, Do you think, well, it's next on the list? When they get more money, it will happen. Too late for 2 weeks ago, but perhaps they'll be able to get it done?
No, that's not what the administration has been saying. Maya Vodanovic, who's responsible for water, has said, no, this is not a priority. So the curious thing is that when you cancel a major infrastructure program, you have to have a plan B. You should have a plan B.
Yeah.
But this is one of the few events that I've seen in my lifetime where major infrastructure is being canceled and the administration hasn't thought further past their nose to say, well, if this were not to be there, what would be alternative measures that we can put in place for those sectors that would be affected that would at least mitigate or alleviate some of the heavy rains? And we've seen that sponge parks, which are being proposed, are a nice-to-have piece, but they're very small and clearly would not meet the needs of all those businesses, all those residents that are in close proximity to the legit collector, but who got swamped 2 Fridays ago.
Alan,
so the lack of a plan B is probably my biggest question. We run our lives, as you know, Elias, having our plan A, plan B, and plan C. In this case, the city is making a significant decision in not building the.
Can you do something at the borough level? Is there some measures of mitigation that you can do? Maybe not as big, but is there something that you're working on at the borough level to work on?
We
this?
will be working at the borough level as hard as we can to make sure that anything and everything that we can do will be there. It will be regulatory means to make sure that the homes that are susceptible to flooding can at least be allowed to make adjustments. It'll be inspections to our industrial sector so that if they're not retaining the water and putting it into the sewage system, well, they will be asked to hold it back. There will be measures citizens can do to make sure that their homes are protected. So everything that we can do, either at the borough level and with citizens, we will be done. But clearly, stormwater management is one that's banished on the island of Montreal, and it's important that the city realize that role and responsibility and do something about it.
Listen, I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you about this before I let you go, Alan. Earlier this week, there was a contentious moment at Montreal City Council when Jim Bass, talking about how the city had prepared for that rainfall. He did so in English, leveled some questions and comments at the mayor. Her response was, you guys over on the other side, Ensemble Montreal, I think the word she used was souvent, often, you're not using French, you're using another language. I would just want to know, what's your reaction to what happened on Monday?
Well, I think the mayor was caught really in a very vulnerable position because she had not been present for 5 days when the rains fell, and she really didn't have an answer. So she used her dead cat strategy, that when someone asks you a question that you don't want to answer, you throw a dead cat on the table, and everyone starts talking about the dead cat. And the fact that she was absent for 5 days all of a sudden disappeared as a subject. So that's what Valerie Plante did. We know that language should not be used to divide Montrealers, and as someone who speaks in both languages and others who speak in multiple languages, we represent our citizens. But this was one where Valerie Plante did not have an answer and used the dead cat strategy to distract from not having to answer the question.
Alan, what is your personally, how do you view what language should be used at, Montreal City Council? How do you make those judgment calls? Because obviously, French, you look at the Montreal Charter, French is the language. We're the French metropolis of North America. So to respect that, but also respect, obviously, the people in this city that do use English as their first language. How do you view that balance when you're at City Council?
Well, when I'm at council, and I've sat on council for many years, I always try to make sure that I'm respectful in using the French language, but at the same time, it hasn't encouraged me to change and speak just in English. So I use both languages simultaneously, often to explain the points I'm trying to bring across. And secondly, when citizens come and ask questions, I always make it a point to respond to them in the language that they have asked their question. So if somebody asks a question in English and they're asking it to me, I will respond in English as opposed to just responding in French. I think it's simple courtesy. And we've got to make sure that we don't get hung up on language and forget just good manners. And good manners means listening to who's asking the question, talking to who your audience is, and talking in the language that they will understand.
Alan, a quick question from a listener, just on the claims and the 15 days, right? And tomorrow's the deadline. I have a question from a listener. How can I put in a claim if I can't get any quotes for damages because everyone is so, like, the contractors and everyone is too busy? Do you need to have, like, quotes and that kind of stuff to file a claim? Or is it more just a matter of saying, I am going to file a claim at this point?
I think you can definitely file a claim and at least put in a ballpark figure with a note saying that you're getting quotes. Uh-huh. And as you get the quotes, you can then use it to provide more detail for your claim. But your claim should cover approximately what you estimate it might cost you.
Okay, great. Alan, great information and a great chat. Thanks so much.
Pleasure. Have a good weekend.
You too. That's Alan DeSousa, who is the borough mayor in Saint-Laurent.